It's been another week in racing, it's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? Two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last stunts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense, so ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is The Magic Mike Show, episode 289, Mr. Samich.
The Spa.
Very nice. Very nicely done.
What can I say?
Oh, so excited. We're going to be previewing Thursday's opening day card at Saratoga. We're back at Saratoga July 15th is when things officially kick off. And we've already had a lot of fun talking about this, picking apart the card. Cannot wait to get going. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Like, how could I be doing any better? We got Saratoga starting up. I'm actually headed up there tomorrow. We're starting the drive, so super excited to get up there. Get to stop at the Baltimore Aquarium on Wednesday. So anyone wants to go to the Baltimore Aquarium, I'll be there on Wednesday. And then we get up to the spa for the weekend of racing, and it's crazy. I mean, Andy Sterling tweeted this today, and Harvey Peck, I've heard him say it a couple times. It's not the graveyard of champions. It's the graveyard of bad handicappers. And when you look through, isn't it? When you look through this card and you compare it to like what you were doing at Belmont and Gulfstream and other places, there is so much more depth to these cards. It takes so much longer to actually handicap it. I mean, it took me almost 3 hours to get through this whole first card with all the replays that I had to watch and everything else. It's another level when you're at Saratoga. I love it. It's great. I mean, it's the toughest meet of the year to me, but that also is a positive. I like that challenge.
Yeah, I think it's even more challenging than Kentucky Downs, because Kentucky Downs, it's like with you got a bunch of horses trying to run European-style racing. You're like, I don't know how this is going to go. You can at least kind of guess with that. It's only just, 6 or 7 race days long, too. Saratoga, you got 7 weeks of this, which is a real grind. But it's the best grind possible. I'm so excited that we're going to be back there. The allowance race that kicks off the Pick 4 sequence on Thursday, that could be easily a Grade 2 race in California. I mean, the quality of horses in that, and it's a first-level non-winners one other than allowance race. And that's how we kick off the Pick 4. It's awesome. It
was the hardest race in the Pick 4 sequence to me, too. Like, that one was the one that I went back and forth on the most. I was over here. I was over there. And you have these 3-year-olds who are ultra-talented, but they're facing older. And when you have, they break their maiden, and then they're off a layoff, and now you're coming back, and you're a Chad Brown-Klarovich horse. Do you really leave that horse off your Pick 4 ticket? Do you, Magic? And then you also have like Brandon Walsh, who brings out a wonderful horse who should definitely get the mile and eighth distance. And it's just, what do you do with these 3-year-olds who are facing older horses, older winners for the first time? Generally, you want to lean toward those older winners, but there's a reason they were saving these horses for Saratoga too. And so you kind of have to try and read the room around what the ownership is like, what the trainer is like. And a lot of times, and this is what makes it so tough, people just want to win at Saratoga. And so you're just never really sure, like, did they save this horse specifically for this race? Are they dropping him down to win at Saratoga, or are they dropping him down because the horse sucks now? You got to get through all of that, and it really depends a lot on the ownership group.
That specific angle is what led me to my top pick in the Pick 4 sequence, which we're going to preview for you guys, along with there's 2 maiden filly races. They had one carded as a maiden special weight for 2-year-old fillies, and then they drew 19 horses, and they said, let's split them. We'll make races 2 and races 5 on the Thursday card that way. I apologize, by the way, if you can hear the construction. They're doing it, again, right below where we're at. They haven't been in here all day, and suddenly there's noise there, so I apologize if that's there.
Don't they know the Magic Mike Show is taping?
I think they do.
Yeah,
I think that's why it's happening here. They're big Andy Sterling fans, apparently. Mike, the best thing that I saw this week, I'm gonna steal. Usually, I let you go first. So I told you, I texted you last night partially because I wanted to remember. Milwaukee Bucks beat the Phoenix Suns, and it was great for Michael Myers, who's a big Milwaukee Bucks fan. He took his mom to the game. Sounds like they had an amazing time there. That's pretty cool. I bet the Bucks pretty hard to win that game, specifically because I saw one odd stat. Scott Foster was going to be one of the officials at the game. Scott Foster, when Chris Paul plays in a game, Chris Paul's 0-11 going into last night's game. I saw that, and I was like, that's not a coincidence. He just doesn't like Chris Paul. I don't know Scott Foster. I don't know if they got beef. I just put a really big bet on the Milwaukee Bucks to win because I saw that, and they won by 20.
Yeah, I had a big first half bet in there. Like, to me, it's overreaction Monday in that NBA series. I mean, after 2 games, the Phoenix Suns couldn't lose. It's literally, are they too good? Are they too good for the Bucks to compete? And then today, it's Giannis is the best player ever. He's going to take the series over, and the Bucks are going to win in 6. And it's like, okay, guys, you went a little overboard after 2 games. Milwaukee played really well. We went a little overboard after game 3. All role players play better at home. If you look at how the Suns shot at home, they shot significantly better. You look at how Milwaukee shot at home. They shot significantly better. Yeah, Giannis was great in game 2, and they looked like they couldn't find any way to win. So to me, it's like, look, let's all calm down. A series doesn't start until you win a game on the road, right? And in this case, Phoenix has home court advantage. Milwaukee's got to take one from Phoenix on the road before I'm gonna start getting on the Milwaukee train. And Phoenix is gonna have an awful tough time taking one from Milwaukee on the road too. I mean, so to me, I think we might go to 7. I think Phoenix might win at 7.
We'll see what happens. I'm on the record as saying I'd like Chris Paul to get it so he can finally get that title. I've loved that guy for so long. It'd just be nice to see him get the title done. I still can't believe, though, that we're talking about Phoenix Suns and Milwaukee Bucks for an NBA title. It's one of those things where it's like it doesn't seem like it really computes. You're used to hearing at least one really big team in there, and you got these 2 teams with very strong young talent on there, but still, it's not quite computing for me hearing about this.
Well, especially in the era where stars really kind of set themselves up, and you have the Nets and the Lakers who are absolutely loaded and just didn't quite work out for them because of injuries or just straight up losing. So you kind of are surprised when you don't see one of those teams that really manipulated their own situation to get monster stars to be able to win. So, but it's been fun. It'd be nice if we had a close game instead of a blowout every time. So hopefully we get one of those soon. But other than that, it's been a fun series. So the best thing that I saw was race 2 and race 5 at Saratoga on Wednesday. I actually texted you and said, hey, Magic, we got to talk about these baby races because they are absolutely incredible. It's one of the things I get really excited for at Saratoga. You see some absolutely major debuts, and then you get to see these horses kind of progress on and become champions or big-time stakes winners. These 2 races are the epitome of that. And a lot of people struggle with these type of races. This is one of the reasons why we're going to talk about them. I'm going to kind of go through one of my really general ways that I start looking at one of these races and kind of approach it before getting into the meat of the handicap. But these races are just so much fun at Saratoga and Del Mar too. Del Mar should get some credit for them too. But we're going to talk about the 2 at Saratoga because they are loaded. I mean, loaded races, both the 2nd and the 5th.
And we'll get into it in a bit, but I do have a partial ownership in one of the horses that's in this race, so I could theoretically have a Saratoga winner to add to my resume of winners that I've owned. I don't know if I'll put her photo up there. I don't know if it'd be really good to make it way over there on the photo wall there. But Mike, let's not waste any more time. The people are here. We're having a great time in the chat here. Kevin Creed, shout out to you making it for the first time. Lots of regulars in there. It's gonna be a fun one. Bring your questions. We'll get into this. The Saratoga preview on the Magic Mike Show. Riders up. There he is. You got your bugler.
Get a Bugler Sam there. You're still get rid of the Churchill video. Work a little harder, Magic. Come on, find some Bugler Sam.
Let's take a look first at race 2 at Saratoga on Thursday, July 15th. This is the opening day card, the first race for maidens, 2-year-old fillies. This was a split division. There's 9 here, 10 in race 5. The 9-5 favorite in this race is all the way on the outside, number 9, Speedometer for Steve Asmussen, Ricardo Santana Jr. The 4, Microbiome is the 5-2 second choice. 8, Frosted Oats is a part of the My Racehorse stable that I have a tiny piece in. Bill Mott, Joelle Rosario to ride. She's Florida bred, but they paid a pretty hefty price tag for her, and she's been training pretty forwardly. I'm not going to tell you to go out and bet her hard, but at 5-1, I think that's a pretty fair price for this filly and in this field. What were your thoughts when you saw this one, Mike?
Well, first off, just another, it's like, I just love these races so much. So I always look at the sires, specifically first crop sires, or early 8 stage sires. So one of the ones that jumped out at me was Clint on the inside. This was a Baffert horse, has yet to have a first-time start winner. So that's important to note right out of the gate. You'll got to look at DRF does a wonderful job of this. If you click on the sire, it gives you a ton of stats about it. It's an awesome way to do it, especially these early sires when you're looking for information. So that's one of the ones that I'm going to immediately chuck. I mentioned, I kind of teased this. The way that I start my approach on these races is by looking at the last 3 workouts. So 12 seconds per furlong is generally what a reasonable workout is, right? So if you run a 4 furlong workout in 48, that's a a level workout. So that's what I give a 0 to, right? If you run it in 47, you get -1. You run it in 46, you get -2. You run it in 49, you get a +1. If you run it out of a gate, you also get a -1. So 49 out of a gate is a 0 to me. 48 out of a gate is a -1, because in these short races, getting out of the gate and working out of the gate well is so ultra important. So I only look at the last 3 workouts and I create a point system for that. And in this race, the horse I ended up landing on was actually the horse that had the lowest. So the 4-horse Microbiome, sure, Microbiome was a -2. And that's because he had a 47, so that's a -1. A minute out of a gate, that's a -1, and then a 49 out of a gate is a 0. So he had the fastest setup, and then when you dive into it a little bit more, Twirling Candy, pretty good first-time out sire, $100,000 sale price out of a $40,000 standing fee, pretty good there. 18% for Tom Amos first time out, pretty good there. 17% for Amos and Gaffleone, pretty good there. And then you look at, you just dig a little bit more into it. The Dam was a 9-time winner on both dirt and synthetic, as well as grade 3 placed. The Dam stats, I think, are really important. So the 4 was the horse I ended up on. The 8 was going to be my other must-use in this spot for a lot of the same reasons. I mean, when you go down to that 8, you mentioned it. Frosted stands for 25. This one sold for 250. Frost is about 10% with first-time starters, including a high buyer of 82. So you know that he's able to get it done there. And the workouts aren't nearly as good. But this is kind of that caveat that I mentioned too. Mott is not one that works them hard in the morning. So you kind of have to know when these numbers that I'm coming up with are great and when they're not. Because in this case, I'm not worried that this horse ends up as a +2 because it's Bill Mott. And he generally is not going to blow them out in the morning. If it's Wesley Ward and it's a +2, that's a huge problem.
Right.
If it's Bill Mott and a +2, the horse is still playable because he usually comes up with higher numbers.
I love that insight into how you read it, that you have almost like sorry, my light fell down. I have a statistical way of analyzing it. And it's good that you also, that it's not you don't use it as a hard set fast rule. You make allowances for different trainers. So that's, and of course you would. Of course, you're a smart guy. So it's good to hear that one. The 9 speedometer is my top choice by a hair over the 8. As Dennis pointed out in the chat, Pretty Birdie won the horse's debut. Speedometer was running a little nutty. First time starter. Also tap it, so she's going to be extra crazy in that debut. But Pretty Birdie is in the Schuylerville Stakes that we're going to talk about later on this same card. And there's a horse that I was curious about playing there. So I am curious about playing her here. I'm with you on Microbiome and Frosted Oats are good ones there. The 2 Pout, adding blinkers for Nick Zito. Nick Zito doesn't do a lot of things all that well, but at this stage, but blinkers on is still a pretty good move for him. So it's one that it could be interesting. He has some race experience and took some time off after racing twice in April and May.
Yeah, I didn't end up using Pout. I don't use Zito just because of its Zito factor now. He's a 4% trainer, and it's really tough. It sucks. I love Nick Zito, but it's tough to use him at this point. I thought the 5 was a little interesting to me. See, $3,000 standing price. For Secret Circle, horse sells for $105,000, and here's debuting first day out at Saratoga. So I thought the 5 was interesting. The 6 was interesting to me in Seduce. Second out motion is generally a little bit better than first out. The sister to the Dam also was a grade 1 winner, and this is the female family of Fusachi Pegasus. So to me, there's some interesting stuff there on the 6. The 9 I went back and forth on. I watched every single replay for the Schuylerville because it's that tough of a race. I don't think it's open and shut after, and I originally thought it was. We'll get into that in quite a bit here. I wasn't that impressed with that debut. I really wasn't. I think I'm probably going to include this horse on deeper tickets, but it's tough for me, especially considering I think you're probably going to see favoritism there. And when you do my workout numbers, the 9 was actually the worst horse in the field.
Wow. Especially for being Asmussen. That's not something that you usually see.
That's not a great sign, and that's one of the reasons. Asmussen is like kind of more toward the Wesley Ward side, where his really good 2-year-olds usually work really well. And you look back and you look at even the further back workouts past those first 3, it's 49 out of a gate, 49 and 38. I mean, that's not great either. So I have a little concern that he may just not be that fast.
If you one last point, we'll move on. If you refresh your PPs for to be current, you'll notice that the 8 Frosted Oats has a 3 furlong blowout that she had. Well, blowout in this there's a sloppy track at Saratoga, but Bill Mott put a 3 furlong work into her earlier this morning in preparation for Thursday's racing. We've had people ask before, why is that a key thing? It's more or less like a screw tightener for the horses. Some of them just know when that. Granted, this is going to be her debut, so it might not be the same, but you put that screw tightener in that 3 furlong to get them and antsy and ready, and you shorten it at 3 furlongs so that they're wanting more and they're sitting on edge, so that you hopefully time it that Thursday she's just like full of energy, ready to burst and get the job done. Did I explain the 3 furlong work thing okay?
You did. I wouldn't necessarily call 38 and change a blowout, but definitely it was a 3 furlong workout.
We usually called a 3 furlong blowout, and then I realized that it was slow when it was in the slop, and it wasn't meant to like really hustle her hard, because as you mentioned before, it's not something that Bill Mott necessarily does. But just one more interesting fact. Let's move on to race 5. Talk about this one. A split division of race 2. You've got 10 juvenile fillies going 5.5 furlongs here. Let me check the odds because they're still not posted on here on Equibase. Favoritism is on the 3 Lady Scarlet. Okay, with Luis Saez in the saddle. 7-2 on the 7 Echo Zulu. 4-1 on the 6 Solasta. A question I have for you is going to revolve around the 5 Outfoxed and the 4 Martini Twist. They're both daughters of first crop sire, Valiant Minister, himself a son of Candy Ride, standing for $3,000. And a shout out to Vinny Blonde from Real Dynasty Picks, who's in the chat. He brought this to my attention earlier today. You have one filly, Martini Twist, that stands for $3,000, sells for $87,000. Outfoxed stands for $3,000, sells for $360,000. That is a huge return on the investment for siring to that horse. I know this is something an angle that you love to look at, Mike, is looking at the standing price versus what the horse ultimately sold for at auction.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy too, because when you go through, so there's 13 current horses that are outfoxed out there. They've sold for 25, 87, 7, 350, 10, 75, 360, 120, and 200 and 3,200. I mean, that's wild. I mean, none of them under 3,000s, and some absolutely huge. He's had 2 starters. Neither one of them has run a buyer over 50 yet. So there's that. So it's tough right now, and this is such an early thing. I mean, we're talking about 13 horses, and 2 have run. They ran a 41 and a 37 buyer respectively. So it's like you can't make too much out of it. But I'm not necessarily going to look at that. I'm sorry, 41 or 43 and 38. I'm not necessarily going to look at that and lean in on either of these horses. I'm going to take a sit and wait approach to see how they start doing before I play anyone or play any of his horses, just because it's not one that I like tagged as a young sire that I wanted to go for. And it's not one that I like. I'm not impressed with the workouts here. Both of them got slower numbers in my scale, +4 and +2. So for me, these 2 horses kind of didn't make the cut.
This isn't going to be very helpful if you play multi-race wagers, which we talk about on the show, but Vinny brings up a great point. Follow the money in race 5. I'm so happy Frosted Oats ended up in race 2 and not this one, because this one was a lot tougher for me from a handicapping perspective. I still don't know who I ultimately love in this race, but did you have a top pick here, or one horse with maybe a price that really caught your attention?
I'm considering singling. And this is, I like to single in these races, because if you're right, it gives you so much value. And if not, I'm probably only going to go 2 deep. To me, the 6th, Solasta, watch out. Okay, Golden Sense is an Into Mischief. Into Mischief stands for $1 million. No, it's like 225,000, I think. Golden Sense stands for 15. This whole horse sells for 300,000. Goes to the Jeremiah Englehart barn. The workouts are good. You have 2 bullet gate workouts, right? So we know the horse can run well out of the gate. Dam's a quarter sister to a 4-time stakes winner. This horse is a half to Mia Mischief, right? That Mia Mischief, grade 1 win, 10 wins, over $1 million, 2 earnings. And Irad Ortiz takes the mount for Englehart. That to me is the key here. Irad Ortiz getting up on this horse tells you everything you need to know about how this horse is working in the morning. I think that the 6 horse is ultra dangerous. The only reason I may not single is the 7 Echo Zulu, which is a gun runner horse out of a dam that's a grade 2 winner. She won all 3 of her first career starts. So you got to think that horse is going to fire early too. So to me, this is the 6 and the 7, and the book is closed.
I knew Greerlin looked familiar as the dam for the 6 Solasta. Yeah, she's Missy P's dam, Mia Mischief. Those horses, very, 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 very good dirt sprinters. I would expect nothing less than the greatness from the 6 here, just based off the pedigree.
And real quick, we talked about Ashmussen's workouts. This one has Asmussen workouts, right? I mean, you got that 47 and 2 out of the gate, which gets the bullet. This one is working like you'd expect a 2-year-old Asmussen to be working.
looks like the horse, like she had been working well, and then those last two, it looks like he, Asmussen, almost just kind of backed off a little bit and wanted to wait for Saratoga. And you also mentioned Gunrunner. Gunrunner has been one of the best sires, first crop or otherwise, for juveniles this year. It's incredible just how well he's doing. All right, Mike, let's do our regular part. We're going to go into the late pick 4 sequence here, starting with race 7. Now, this is like I said, this race could easily be a graded stakes in California. A field of 12 males, 3 and up, going 1 1/8 on the main track. This is first level allowance, non-winners of one other than $103,000 purse, again, stakes race. Favoritism, you've got the coupled entry of Arham and Aja Weed, two extremely different running styles for those horses. Aja Weed loves to come from the clouds. Arham usually likes to sit pretty close. They're the 5-2 co-favorite, Mike, and I don't want to use either one of them. I didn't end up using either one of them. Where are you going on top?
Oh, I got the numbers wrong in my picks. So I'll have to update that later. I'm going to go, what can you do? I'm going to go with Business Model on top, who is the 2-horse. So I got that right. Look, this is one of those that I kind of referenced when we were doing the Open. I really like second off the layoff horses that are running at Saratoga when they're debuting there. It's one of those where I think that the trainers are specifically pointing that horse toward that race. Business Model ran pretty good against tough competition when it was running. When it was running in early 2001. I'm sorry, when it was running in 2020 as a 2-year-old. We have the first start as a 3-year-old where you see a huge buyer jump. So it goes from that 65, 60 buyer all the way up to 89. Horse runs monstrous, able to close around the turn. I don't think that race was a fluke. When you watch the workout, when you watch the replay, they went fast early, but that horse seemed to have a lot left and was able to stay relatively close to an opening pace, or opening half mile in 45 and 4. This 1 1/8 also should be absolutely no problem for the Son of Candy ride. So I like this horse at the distance. I think you could see a nice step forward second time out. I love the fact that this horse was able to win going 2 turns. I think the 2 is going to be awfully tough here.
We should probably stick to saying the names of the horses here, because the post right here, because we're a day out, it's still not updated properly. So Business Model, that's going to be your top pick then.
I'm going to go with the 3 Business Model. I'll get here off now. They don't have numbers.
Okay. Come on, Saratoga. That's actually Equibase's fault. I didn't use the 3. I only went too deep here. I did look at Business Model pretty close. I like the fact that the horse, first time as a 3-year-old, steps up, and also with a huge buyer performance, but also first time Lasix and gets to keep Lasix here because we're not running in a stakes race. So you've got that going for Tyler Gaffalione. Is no knock on Adam Beskiza, but I think that Tyler Gaffalione's a rider upgrade. You're getting second off the layoff. It is first time versus winners, which is, you've mentioned, something that multiple horses are going to struggle with. My top pick here is going to be, it's the 8 in the program, Dust Devil. I love Dust Devil in this spot. Should get first run on the leaders with that stalking position, but you might be looking at this horse from area. This horse has been stuck in not winning. You get second, third, fourth in this allowance level. Why are you using him as your top pick, Magic? Let me tell you. This horse is going to be first time for trainer Bill Mott, first time for brand new owners who privately purchased him after that Belmont race with Saratoga in mind. This is something you brought up at the top of the show, Mike, that owners love to target these big meets like Oaklawn and Saratoga Del Mar. This is Panafel Stable, Adam Wachtel, that own this horse. They bought this horse for Saratoga. They sent him to Bill Mott. Joel Rosario is going to ride through the barn change, which we're going from a 13% barn to Bill Mott is 21% here. And this is a horse that's also a half to multiple 9 furlong turf allowance winner. So even though there isn't a ton of distance and routing in the form there, does have that ability to go long. By the way, the one time he tried running a 1 1/8, it was in the slop at Aqueduct, but won by 6.5 lengths. So very impressive. This is my top pick. Did you use him?
I did not. This was actually the last horse off for me in this race. And one of the main reasons is I'm going to use the one Arham, who just beat this horse. And I agree that switching over to the Mott barn is an interesting angle here, but Mott's only 16% with first time out of his barn and a 97-cent ROI. So the horses that are winning are heavy favorites when they go to the Mott barn. This isn't going to be a heavy favorite, and this is an ultra tough race. So I'm not really that confident that Dust Devil is going to take a step forward. I think that he could kind of replicate that race, but replicating that race isn't good enough to beat the one, Arham, let alone the rest of the field here. So I'm going to kind of lean more toward the one and say that that's going to cover me from playing the 8, although I don't knock you for playing the horse. I kind of get why you get there. And the one was actually my second horse. And this is one of those situations where I hate entries. I mean, I was 100% against Ajaweed. And now I kind of am stuck with Ajaweed because my second horse I like the most is Arham. And so this is a situation where I'm not sure. Like if you they're going to be the favorite. If you separate them, the odds would be, you get almost double odds on what you're going to get on Arham on race day in my mind. And that's kind of a bummer because that is the horse that I like in this race, or the second pick for me in this race. So I wish that we didn't have the entry, but it is what it is. They're both coming out of the Pletcher barn. It'll be interesting to see if they both stay in. They both seem live here. The post to me on the 12 is an awfully tough spot to be there. So, or on the 1A in that 12 post, it's an awfully tough spot to be there.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. RM. I'm not going to say I would use RM if Ajweed wasn't coupled with, but same belief on Ajweed. No, just get the hell out of here. RM is going to be interesting because this is a son of Union Rags out of a Smart Strike mare. You would think that this horse would love routing, yet this is going to be the first time the horse actually tackles 2 turns. Mile 16 to Belmont is still 1 turn. So it's a little different for him. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. Adding the blinkers I thought was an interesting move for him. And Luis Saez rode him last out, rode him in his first 2 starts. I wonder if that was something Saez mentioned to Pletcher that he should do, because this is a horse that I think is going to be best when he tries to go up on the front and try and lead. I'm a little worried he might get into a pace duel with the 6 Yearn for Victory, who I think is going to be cheap speed, but is going to get stuck with a possible pace duel with the 4. I don't know that I trust the 4 to really be able to capitalize on the 6 if they do get stuck in a pace duel. Did you get concerned about that at all?
So I don't think RM is going to necessarily be in the lead, and I don't think the speed is that cheap with Yearn for Victory. Yearn for Victory, I'm going to use the 6 horse here. Okay. I don't love these 3-year-olds stepping up, but in this case, a lot of the 4-year-olds are a little beat up in my mind. I'm not as in love with those, so I'm going to take a shot with a couple here. I kind of want the speed in a 1 1/8 race at Saratoga. One of the things that you see in a lot of these races is speed just holds. So I'm looking forward to make sure I have the speed. He may be cheap speed, but I do believe he has speed, sired by Byron, who obviously won the Breeders' Cup Classic at 1 1/4. So you got some distance in the pedigree. This horse also sold for a ton of money, $200,000, $7,500 is the standing price for Byron. Touch Gold on the bottom was also a good router. I think this horse could take another pretty big step up. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's controlling speed in this case, especially if they go a little bit slower. I mean, he went 23:47, 111 last time and looked pretty good doing it. So I'm going to use the 6, and I'm going to hope that the 1 does not press the 6 and just kind of sits right off him, just like he did last time against Yankee Division.
The other horse that I used in here, just going too deep, is the 2. The official 2, or no, sorry, the 2 Southern District. God, I'm all thrown off looking at the Equibase one still. I love Southern District in this spot. First time versus winners, which is something that business models facing and for victories facing. I agree with you. I think the older horses don't really scare me too much overall. This horse has never sprinted. This horse has never tried 1 turn in his life. Debuts 2 turns at Gulfstream on the turf, then 2 turns at Keeneland on the turf. He's by Union Rags. Mike, yeah. If Chad Brown can't get a Union Rags horse to win on the goddamn turf, never try Union Rags horses on the turf. I don't care if it's a Galileo mare. No, you go to get your ass on the dirt. It just doesn't work. What happens when the horse goes on dirt? Oh, it pops an 87 buyer. Handily beats a horse that won its next start out, getting an 80 buyer. They were really slow at the beginning of that race. He was sitting there tracking and had enough left, despite the going slow and stalking horses, to just fly past them and get that 3-length win. Irad's going to be hopping back in the saddle. It's Chad Brown, it's Clairvich Stables. Cannot leave him off, as you mentioned. And by the way, the last 3/8 of that race averaged 11.8 seconds for Southern District. Yearn for Victory averaged 12.6 seconds in those last 3/8 of a mile. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you anything. I'm going to use the 2 Southern District here as well. I don't like the fact this is first off a layoff. I'm a little concerned about that. And I don't love the fact that Brown started this horse on the turf. I mean, that to me is the other big issue. Chad Brown's a really smart trainer. If there's anyone that can find the difference between a turf horse and a dirt horse, and he is pretty prolific at both. People knock him for his dirt horses. He's struck at a pretty good percentage. I think it was last year that we talked a lot about this, and we kind of were saying he's having this terrible meet, and his dirt horses were actually doing pretty well, and his turf horses weren't getting home. Yeah. But he's actually pretty decent on the dirt as well. So I'm not going to knock him for that. But he's usually does not start a horse on the wrong surface. And we should start calling Union Rags like 5% or make up a nickname for it. Because I think Union Rags is 5% overall turf routing right now. And you think that Union Rags is much better than that because of what Union Rags has been able to do as a sire on the dirt. I'm going to use this horse. I'm going to play 2 tickets. I'm playing a 50-cent ticket, and I'm going to play a $2 ticket. The 2-horse Southern District makes the 50-cent ticket, but did not make the $2 ticket. That was the one I cut. And now that we want to make sure I get the numbers right, I'm going to use the 1, the 3, and the 6 on that $2 ticket. And then the 2-horse is going to sneak into the 50-cent for me, mainly because I don't want to get knocked out by Chad Brown, Clarovich, Stables, and Irad Ortiz in the first pick 4 we give out at Saratoga.
You mean I haven't made that look fun in the past?
But you've done a wonderful job of showing me what not to do.
Listen, we're here to educate people, right? Whether it's good lessons or bad lessons, we're here to give it to you. We're going to move on to the second race, the late pick 4 sequence of Saratoga on opening day, Thursday, July 15th, the grade 3 $120,000 quick call stakes. Field of 7 3-year-olds plus 2 MTOs going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. As of right now, I'm going to guess, and I'm usually bad at this, Mike, I'm going to guess that we're going to have good turf conditions, but we are going to be on the turf for these stakes races. Favoritism is on the number 3, Golden Pal at 1-2. Very deserving favorite. We're both singling in both the 50 center and in your $2 ticket here. Instead of talking about Golden Pal, because I mean, it should be pretty evident why we're going to play him and why we love him here, is there any horse at a price, if you wanted to try and beat Golden Pal, that you think could get it done?
I had one other horse I think is kind of interesting in this spot. I think I kind of talk about the known and the unknown factor, right? So you have a lot of known quantities on the turf that can't beat Golden Pal, right? When you look at like Fauci, who probably will be the second horse in odds, Fauci can't beat Golden Pal. We've seen the horse run on the turf enough to know that Fauci's not going to be able to get it done. If I was going to take a swing to beat Golden Pal here, I think the swing is Jackson Traveler. I would go toward the outside with the 9-horse. I mean, look, the horse is by Munnings, so there is some turf sprinting ability when you look at the siring side of it. It ran an 85 buyer up at Woodbine over a synthetic course and just missed to Outador, was favored over Outador. So there's something there that I think is kind of valuable. You got a 94 buyer at Oaklawn, and there's numbers that fit. The horse is fast but doesn't need to lead, is able to kind of stalk if necessary. I think the 3 and the 9 are the only 2 horses that could win this race. I mean, obviously it's horse racing, someone else could win, but for my money, I would never go deeper than the 3 or the 9 here. And I'm probably going to have a pretty big cold exacta 3-9 and just a little bit on the 9-3.
The Jackson Traveler is the 3-1 second choice on David Aragona's morning line, and I'm with you. I think if you're going to try and beat Golden Pal, I think that's the most likely horse. I don't think you can't use both in your multis because this thing already looks a little chalky just to begin with. But both his Damn Listen Boy and multiple siblings are multiple winners on turf. So Jackson Traveler has plenty of turf ability in his pedigree in the dam side, and Munnings horses can win at anything. They're fantastic. Dirt, turf, slop, synthetic. So I'm not going to lie, Mike, because I looked at my ticket and I'm using the favorite in 3 out of the 4 legs. I almost was, just to be contrarian, going to still single the 9 here and drop the 3 out, because if the 3 wins and then you get the favorites home in the next 2, I don't really know that this thing's going to pay all that much and really be even worth the $25 I'm investing. So for me, I have really toyed with that for a brief second. It's more just because Steve Asmussen, first time on turf, and with Jose Ortiz in the saddle, very, very low percentages. So it kind of scared me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we all know I don't love Asmussen on turf, but I think that might be a lot because of Santana. I mean, you look at his other horses on turf; they do pretty well when it's not Santana riding. And I trust Jose Ortiz on the Saratoga turf as much as almost anybody. So I'm gonna give this one the benefit of the doubt and see what happens here. Look, the problem is if Golden Pal runs a Golden Pal race, this is over, right? I mean, that's really the biggest issue here, is that if Golden Pal shows up, it's done. And that's why I have a $2 ticket, because I'm not playing the favorite in the next race. I'll just kind of spoiler alert that one. So for me, this was the race where I'm like, I'm okay to chalk out here because I am passing on the favorite and playing a $2 ticket without the favorite in the next race, as well as my 50-cent ticket, completely checking out the favorite next time.
Well, let's move on to that next race. We're going to go to the grade $350,000 Schuylerville Stakes. Juvenile fillies going 6 furlongs on the main track here. Favoritism that Mike is talking about and skipping is the 7 Happy Soul. This is another Wesley Ward trainee, so Ward perfectly primed to win back-to-back stakes races on Saratoga's opening day card. She is 8-5 on the morning line, so you're getting a better price than you were on her stablemate here. Mike, in my opinion, if you were trying to beat a Wesley Ward horse, this is the one that I think you actually could have a decent chance of beating. I went 5 deep here. Tell me who's your top pick.
Yeah, I ended up 3 deep here, and I'm not going to use the Ward horse. So my top pick is actually on the inside, Pretty Birdie, who we talked about the Ashton horse facing it earlier. I think this one is absolutely loaded. I went back and watched the replays. I went through all the different charts, and one thing that jumped out to me here for Pretty Birdie, if you go back and you look at that win, You had Speedometer there, the Aston horse that's going to run here. The favorite, Penny Saver, was the favorite in that race. If you look back at who finished fourth, very little sense. Next out winner. The only other horse, Minnesota Sunset, who's running this race, next out winner. They finished fourth and sixth in this race. Both of them won next out. If you look at the other fields, and when you really dive into these fields, it's something important to do in these 2-year-old races. Let's look at Happy Soul, for instance. Happy Soul in the Asteria, 5-horse field. 3 of the 5 were maidens besides Happy Soul. 3 of the 5 were maidens. Didn't beat anything in that race. You go to the previous race, right? And you look at what happened in that maiden special weight. Again, 5-horse field. Next race, only 1 horse has run. The horse who ran last got a 0 buyer. A 0. So when you kind of dig through this and you look at the different fields that they faced in their maiden and what those have done since, the 1 horse's field is by far the best and could end up being a key race, especially if you see that 9-horse win the second race. All of a sudden, you have 3 horses to run, 3 winners next out. I think the 1-horse, Pretty Birdie, is dangerous. And if you watch that race, it didn't even break that well and was able to make the lead there. So the 1-horse is my top pick. The other horse I thought was a must-use in this spot, I'm going to go all the way outside of Cartel Queen. And I talk about this a lot. Yeah. But all these 2-year-old races are loaded with speed. Give me the professional horse. The 9-horse is Cartel Queen is the most professional horse. There's going to be a ton of pace on. This horse proved last time out that it was able to sit off the pace and then be able to score. Not just that, this horse was pocketed up as a 2-year-old, and the pace horse came off the rail, and the jockey started to go inside. A 2-year-old going inside is really tough to pass. Well, then the pace came back over, and the horse had to swerve out and go to the 2 path, and then was able to still kick on and score, going, I think it was 5.5 that day, going 5 that day. The extra furlong is going to be no problem. This horse didn't get to start running until mid-stretch, and once it got to start running, opened up on the field by 2 lengths. The buyer is it comes back soft, but I think that's because of the trip, not because of necessarily what the horse ran. And I think the horse has this next furlong pretty easily. So I'm going to go with the 1 and the 9 on top. I like them both quite a bit here. I'm going to play just those 2 on my $2 ticket.
So I'll be honest. The one I was on the fence about and I ultimately didn't use, and halfway through your argument, I was like, it's worth $5 for me to just add the 1. So the 1 is on my ticket. So I'm with you. I am now 6 deep in the 9-horse race.
After singling the chalk in the previous?
Yeah. I know. Well, it's only $30. No, the Cartel Queen is one that I loved. I almost made her a must-use because, and she, by the way, she's 12-1. You're getting 12-1 on the 9-horse with Irad jumping aboard for Tom Amos. Never rides for Amos. Amos is adding the blinkers. And to your point about the buyers, how many times do we see these fillies go from or juveniles of either sex, go from a really low buyer to bam, they get like an 87. An 89. Like, you're in a graded stakes race, they're going to pump it up anyways. But I think that's definitely worth looking at. The 7 Happy Soul I'm using because I unless you're trying to be contrarian and beat her, I think you've got to try and put her on here. She's extremely fast, has a 119 early time form pace rating. She's drawn outside of horses that are going to be trying to go for the lead as well. She's undefeated on fast dirt, undefeated when she's facing fillies. Her debut was in the slop against Open Company. She's the rare run happy horse that wins it too. Like, how often do you see a run happy horse that can freaking win at 2 years old and win as dominantly she has by 23 lengths, over 23 lengths in 2 starts, including the 5.5 furlong Astoria Stakes. You are going to be getting a lot shorter than 8-5 on this horse, I believe. Yeah,
that's the other. I think the morning line is way. Like, David Argonia does a wonderful job. I think both the morning line and the 3-horse last race and the 7-horse this race are high. I think you're going to see 1-5 or 1-9 on Golden Pal. I think you're going to see sub-even money here on Happy Soul, and I just don't think she deserves to be sub-even money. Obviously, we do the show to give out a pick 4 ticket. I think if you're using both of them, you almost don't play the pick 4, or you're singling both of them and playing a $5 ticket. I mean, I think it's really tough to find value if you're going to include both of those 2 horses. And I think Happy Soul is the one that is definitely beatable. Like I said, 2 5-horse fields facing a bunch of maidens. None of them have run back and done anything. If you're going to beat someone, I think it's going to be Happy Soul of the 2. And that's one of the reasons I'm leaving this horse off, because it's being contrarian, but it's also, to me, there's just no value in betting the sequence. If you're playing both of them, you're spreading in one of those 2 spots. This is a tough race. I mean, you could go a couple other ways. I mean, Pipeline Girl, the 3-horse, Amos has 2 in here. You kind of think that horse probably is a little bit of a runner. I'm also going to use the 2-horse Mainstay. So that's going to be the last horse in for me. By the way, just before I diverge here, if you can't tell, I'm so excited for Saratoga. I've been watching on so many replays, like all the stats, man. Happy Run Happy has been a lot better. I got to give Run Happy some credit. The first time starters haven't been great, still 5%, but at least we're up to 11% for 2-year-olds. This second crop has been a lot better than that first crop. So I give Run Happy a little bit of credit because I used to shit all over him. Mainstay. So this horse was ultra impressive. When you go back and you watch the Monmouth replay, this is one of those where we talked about this. It's really hard to judge how good a horse is coming out of Monmouth because you just don't know. But when you watch that replay, I mean, this horse didn't break that well, rushed up into 23-3. The second quarter was rather slow in 46-2, but still was able to get the job done, come home in a 6-second pace. I think this one has a ton of speed. And you look at the workouts, 45-5 for 4 furlongs at Parks, 58-3. This, I think, is probably going to be your leader, not Happy Soul, which I also think is a problem for Happy Soul. So I'm going to include the 2 here, and I'm going to go 1-2-9 on the 50-cent ticket.
I loved Mainstay, definitely on my ticket. Astern, first crop sire, offspring in 6 starts, 2 wins in 3 seconds. We're going to ignore the one time the horse was off the board. It was at some podunk track, I think. But the horses have been very strong to start. Was won at Monmouth on the lead and didn't need a whip to keep running away from a competition. That's a pretty big one. I'm a little tiniest bit nervous about her coming off the slop into this next one, but just a tiny bit. Still made my ticket. I did use the 3 Pipeline Girl and the 4 Velvet Sister. Pipeline Girl is by Air Force Blue, who's a 16% sire for 2-year-olds. She is one of the few horses in this field that passed horses to win her debut race. So especially being drawn to post 3, she's going to be behind horses. So it's good that she can get around them. I just hope that she stays a little bit in the clear. She got a pretty decent, if I remember right, her last trip, she got a pretty decent trip. The 4 Velvet Sister is a $500,000 daughter of Bernardini. She's a half to My Boy Tate, who is a stakes winner, multiple stakes winner on the New York bred company. This is a New York bred who beat Open Company on debut. Now, granted, it was against 2 other horses, but she beat them like she was just dusting them in a workout. It's Steve Asmussen. Joel Rosario is going to keep riding. He's 32% with Asmussen when they team up together at Saratoga. So it's a pretty strong angle. I understand if you wanted to go a little shorter, you didn't use these horses, but they're both 8-1 on the morning line. I'm willing to go a little deeper here with them.
Yeah, and to just, the one thing, like, again, looking through the different charts, that was a 3-horse field, but the second place finisher in that race, and this is the 4-horse Velvet Sister, second place finisher was Gerrymander. Gerrymander was a $375,000 first-time starter for Clairvich Stables and Chad Brown. So it was a 3-horse field, but at least you have someone in there that you can say, hey, that's a pretty good horse. And the 2 of them actually went stride for stride, essentially. And that Gerrymander, by the way, was 1-2 in that spot, was heavily favored over Velvet Sister. And they went essentially stride for stride. Gerrymander got within maybe a neck around the turn, and then Velvet Sister just opened right up. So I don't hate that use. We just don't know how good Gerrymander is, especially, 1-2 in a 3-horse field, So to me, I just wasn't sure what to do with Velvet Sister. And I can tell you, Velvet Sister is not fast enough to make the lead here. And so then you have, okay, is Velvet Sister good enough to pass horses? You get Rosario, which I think is a positive in that sense. He's for these 2-year-olds, I think Rosario is actually pretty good, especially if he's not going to the lead with them, because he's going to be able to motivate them and kind of get them moving for home. So I don't hate the use of the 4 there. It's all about, this sequence is interesting to me because I feel like you got to have proper ticket construction. You got to not include one of these favorites. And you can't spend too much money because their favorites could easily win. So it's a spot where you got to kind of figure out how to not blow a bunch of bullets, but give yourself a chance to make some money.
I'm going to go ahead and say that you convinced me. I know I made her my top pick, but listening to you specifically on the ticket construction, this is something we've talked about off air before, that I need to be better at is making sure I don't have like heavy favorite. If both the heavy favorites win, this sequence isn't going to pay jack shit. So, I'm going to listen to you. I'm dropping the 7 off. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 in this spot and see. One thing that caught my attention too for Happy Soul, she got an 81 buyer with that huge maiden special weight win. And then another 81 buyer. I know 81 buyers this early in your 2-year-old season are incredible, but she didn't take any steps forward is what that kind of tells me. And she was beating, she beat 4 other horses in each of those races. She's facing twice as many rivals here. So you convinced me. I'm going to theoretical prop for you. Which one were you going to bet? Wesley Ward wins both of these stakes races, or Wesley Ward wins neither stakes race?
Even money?
Yeah, we'll say -110 on both sides.
I would take wins both because I don't think Golden Pal's going to lose.
Right. We're singling him up pretty hard.
Yeah, so if I don't think Golden Pile's going to lose, I'd be a fool to take -110 on they'll both lose, right?
Well, there's almost 60 of you watching here, so guys, let us know in the chat. By the way, thank you to everybody who's watching us live right now. If you're watching the replay, you can do this as well. Give us a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to the Racing Dudes YouTube channel, hit the notification bell. You get alerted when we go live, when the Blinkers Off guys go live, and of course the Rocket Hour. And I know Ricky and Aaron are extremely excited to talk about Saratoga starting on Thursday, so check that out. We're going to finish things up here. The final leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Saratoga on their opening day, July 15th, Thursday. Oh boy, Mike, it's one of my favorites. Field of 12 New York bred maiden boys plus 2 MTOs going a mile and 16th on the inner turf course. At least they're not maiden claimers that are New York breds. Favoritism is going to be on the 8 Clever Fellow at 8-5. This is Chad Brown. This is Irad Ortiz Jr. Mike, when was the last time you saw Chad Brown had a 5-year-old gelding that was still a maiden, and he's put him out on the track 3 times as a 5-year-old? We're going to have number 4.
and started this horse's career 3 times on dirt. Never touched the turf until 2021 April at Belmont.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, was chalk in the last 3 races, just chewing up money.
Yep. And probably going to chew up a lot of money here. I did use it. I went pretty deep. I think I used because I think there's class here, but this horse is just it's like an albatross.
Yeah, I ended up making my 50-cent ticket, but did not make the $2 ticket. I actually thought this race was actually pretty good betting race because I assumed that you're going to see favoritism to the 8. I handicapped this without morning line, and I thought a couple horses were sneaky in here. Should I jump right into it? I'll just jump right in.
Sorry, go right in.
Look, again, this is a replay-heavy pick for me. The 7-horse Viking Zim got absolutely left at the gate last time, and had never been necessarily it wants to close, but doesn't want to close from that far back at a mile. If you look at the previous race, they went 6 furlongs in that race. Yeah, it was 9 lengths back, but they ran that half in 21-4, 45-2. The next race out, you see him, he's 9 lengths back at a mile. He doesn't necessarily want to be that far back. Had trouble down the stretch, had to actually angle in and out and then be able to get through. Ortiz rides this horse back for the 4th time. I think this is the race that you're going to see the best effort out of Viking Zim. If you go back and watch the replay, this was the best horse out of that last race, and that's where Ruse came out of. I think there was one other horse in here that came out of that race as well that I was looking at, the 2-horse Dancing with the Stars. To me, the 7-horse is coming off a troubled trip. I think the 2 turns is going to be good for him because I think he's going to sit a little closer to the pace. I think he's going to wheel out wide and he's going to be flying home. It's going to be whether or not he can get there.
You had great points on the trip. I played against this horse. I had to kind of figure out, because I liked a lot of them, I had to figure out how am I going to really differentiate. Mishawish, the sire, is 4 for 70 with horses on turf. Not a strong turf pedigree there. And then Jeremiah Englehart, the trainer, is only 4% from 71 starts on turf. So I left off, but if you ignore those stats and you look at specifically that last race like Mike is talking about, looks pretty good. I'm looking here to see who we actually agree on pretty much everything here. There's one horse that I used that you didn't, but we pretty much agree on everything. I want to talk about the 10. This was another of my must-uses, Big George's Kingdom. You've got a 3-year-old stepping up to face older, but this horse is going to be carrying low weight of 118 pounds. Animal Kingdom, first time on turf, is pretty strong. I believe is 16%. I think this is your early pace, Mike. I couldn't really figure out who was going to take the lead here. This horse is trying turf for the first time, but on dirt was continuously setting the pace. He ends up never getting the job done, losing by several lengths, but the last 2, he was still second, so at least he still tries hard is what that tells me when someone runs off. You're getting 15-1 on him, and Javier Castellano is going to be in the saddle. I don't hate Castellano. I think this horse could potentially be our pace setter, and if nobody presses him, you want those front runners on the New York turf.
Yeah, I mean that's you kind of nailed it right here. This is my other must use. I'm going to use the 7 and the 10 and the $2 ticket. And to me, the 10 Big George's Kingdom makes a ton of sense here. There just isn't a lot of speed, and the 10 post is actually a positive in that case. First off, we're at a mile and 16th, not a mile. That's a big differentiator. You got a lot more time in the stretch to be able to get over. And when you're in the 10 post and you have speed, Castellano has no choice. I like it when a jockey has no choice, because I want to know what the jockey's intentions are. And with the 10 Big George's Kingdom, I know he's going. 100% this horse is going to be, now I'm jinxing it, but 100% this horse is going to be in the lead in the first turn, and should be setting a pace in a race that I don't think there's that much speed. I mean, the 12 Ruse has some pace, but I'm going to end up using that horse. So there's a couple in here that I think may be close to the pace. But if we go 23 in that opening quarter, I bet we get a 48 half. And then this horse is ultra dangerous going 2 turns on the turf.
The 8-horse Clever Fellow, 8-5 favorite, was one of the other must-use of mine. I pretty much touched on it. It's Chad Brown. It's Ira Ortiz Jr. It's a 5-year-old gelding. Chad doesn't keep these horses around, especially now that the babies are showing up and they're starting to get ready to race. Trainers like him that have an influx of talent every year, if this horse wasn't cutting it, he'd be gone. The fact that he stays in the barn after Belmont, I'm like, this horse has got to have some sort of talent. So I'm going to use him. Is that pretty much, other than this form when he was on turf as well, is that why you used him as well?
Yeah, I mean, the last two were pretty good. Bar 14 and Ocala Dream are both fairly good horses. Bar 14 was in that race with Viking Zim and Ruse and Dancing with the Stars. So Bar 14 is at least a horse you kind of compare. Now, the difference is that race, Bar 14 went 22 and change, 5 and change, and so kind of got burnt out in the race with Clever Fellow. He was able to go a little bit slower up front. I like the fact that this horse isn't going to be too far off it. I think you're going to sit a pretty good trip here. It should be in 4th or 5th around the first turn and down the backstretch. And you try to trust Ortiz that he's going to make a trip out on this horse.
The other two horses that you and I agreed on, the 11, Sandra the Great, the 12, Ruse. Ruse is a son of War Dancer, himself a son of Warfront. The horse in 4 starts on turf has 2 seconds and a third, so clearly is his best surface. He's going to be second off the layoff, pretty much second time at age 3. And then you also have Sandra the Great at 15-1, first time for Tom Bush after being with Christophe Clement. Takes the blinkers off, and something else came off because now he's a first-time gelding. This is a 4-year-old son of Empire Maker, so plenty of talent there. Those are big reasons why I love them. What about you?
Yeah, I think the other thing you have to mention, I kind of hinted at this, is that in that race where Cotton won and Ruse ends up running second, if you look at where the other pace setters were, so the horses within a length of the lead early, where the Great Gazoo ends up running 11th, Bar 14, who was the favorite and won next time out, ends up running 5th. And Ruse hangs on and runs second. I think that tells you a lot about how good that race was out of that horse, especially first time off the bench. I mean, one of the things we talk about a lot on here is when you see 3 or 4 pace horses and one of them lasts and the other 3 quit, that's a horse that ran a much better race than what necessarily looks like on paper. And that's the case with the 12-horse Ruse here. Again, mile and a 16th. That outside post doesn't cost you as much, so I don't mind that we're sitting all the way on the outside. So I think that Ruse, while I don't love Tim Hill, and I got other issues here with this horse, I think it's a worthwhile use in this case, especially try and kind of close out this pick 4. Yeah, the 11-horse Sandra the Great, I think, is interesting because you're gelding. You got the blinkers coming off. You're switching up the trainer, but you get Rosario riding through. This was a Clement horse before. Now you got Rosario riding here. So it was one I wanted to include on my ticket, but not one that I was overly passionate about. To me, the 7 and the 10, I think, are the 2 horses you have to use here. And the 11 and the 12 and the 8 are more of the horses where it's like, okay, I think they can win, but I'm not as up on them.
I'm curious how quickly the 5 Noble Journey hit the cutting room floor for you. This horse is 10-1 for Jimmy Jerkins, is coming out of 2 sprints on turf, now going to be routing. The one time this horse routed, it was on the turf at Aqueduct, going a mile and a 16th. He was the 9-5 favorite in that race. Now adds blinkers for the 3rd start as a 3-year-old. Jimmy Jerkins, 23% going sprint to route with an $8.07 ROI, which means it's happening with horses that you don't expect. And 10-1 says people aren't expecting this horse to do it. I think he's going back to routing is a huge plus for him. The buyers don't quite fit with the best horses here, but maybe the 3rd start off the layoff, maybe getting back to routing. Now he's 3 years old. Maybe all of those things will add up to enough of a buyer jump that he can beat some of these.
Yeah, he's going to have to take a step forward. I mean, it's interesting. We're going to talk about these same horses. Cotton, 2 back, Viking Zim, Bar 14 won his last race. I'm just not sure he wants a mile and 16th. I mean, that was my main issue with this horse. I agree with you, the stats, and I think this might be your other speed horse. This is the horse that could contest with the 10 because you have a horse coming out of sprints, adding blinkers with an inside post, right? I mean, there was not a lot on the inside here, and I usually like to have at least one horse on the inside when I'm playing these tickets. So he kind of got a long look for me, just didn't end up making a ticket. This isn't a race I want to go 6 deep. If you want to spend the extra money on my 50-cent play, I think Noble Journey is one you could use. I think you use the 2 too if you wanted to. But the 2 Danzig with the Stars was, to me, significantly worse than Viking Zim last time out, even though they were only about a length apart.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Magic Mike Show. Thank you so much for joining Mike and I to preview Saratoga's opening day card. Most of the races on there. If you want more coverage of that, Rocket Hour Thursday morning with Ricky and Aaron. I'm sure they'll go very deep in depth on the Saratoga opening day card. The Samo Bombs, I know you're going to be rare enough to go at Saratoga, so we can talk about that in a minute. But first, let's give out our tickets. If you look below, our tickets should be updated now. I'm going to start off with my 50 center. It is 2-8 with 3 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, with 5, 8, 10, 11, 12, $25 on that one because this feels a little chalky, but I think this is a good enough investment. Your ticket, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of a filibuster here while I add a comma, so I don't play the 12 horse. And then I'm gonna go ahead and save it, and I'm gonna show it. So my tickets, I'm gonna play a 50-cent ticket. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's not right. Hold on a second. Pause. I'm using the 6 here. This is the problem with all these numbers moving around.
Well, while Mike does that, I will let you know that the inside track to the Haskell Stakes wagering guide is available for pre-sale. If you haven't bought one in the past, what's cool what the dudes do with Haskell, because Monmouth Park can be a little formful with the shorter races, and the excitement level ranges between race to race there. Saratoga's opening Saturday card that has the Diana Stakes, and there's one other one that I can't remember off the top of my head. There are going to be previews for that in the guide as well. So if you want the Racing Dudes preview for the Diana, it's included free with the inside track to the Haskell Stakes wagering guide, available now for pre-sale at racingnews.com. And you can expect that thing to be out Thursday because they draw Wednesday. Are your tickets ready?
Yep, we're good to go. All right, so we're going to play a 50-cent ticket. 1, 2, 3, 6 with 3 with 1, 2, 9 with 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. That'll cost you $30 for 50 cents. And then I'm going to fire a $2 ticket off. I'm going to go 1, 3, 6 with 3 with 1, 9 with 7, 10 for $2. That'll cost you $24. 2 tickets together cost you $54 total.
So the theme here, Mike and I think this could be a little chalky, so make sure you pick your battles, find the spots where you think that the favorite is vulnerable. He convinced me to change it in the Schuylerville Stakes, so we'll see what happens on that one. Mike, big weekend coming up, big Thursday, Saratoga. We haven't even talked about Del Mar opening up. We can't talk about them because they don't have their card out yet, but it is going to be exciting, so I'm looking forward to Del Mar being back. We'll be covering Del Mar at different points on the show as well, but looking ahead to Thursday's show, previewing the weekend, I think we got to go back to Saratoga. I think the excitement level for Saratoga is too high right now. That as much as I love Del Mar, I feel like we got to stay there.
I mean, I'm going to be there, so I actually get to punch the ticket with the paper, which is amazing. Like I love that. Getting handed cash too when you win is so much better than just refreshing your account online. Let's do Saratoga, man. And then Sama Bombs this next month is crazy. Obviously, we're going to try and get as much in from both Saratoga and Del Mar as possible. There's going to be a lot more grid-only days. So like if I'm doing Saratoga on a Saturday, you might see grid-only for Del Mar on that day too, because it's a lot to go back and forth and do the tickets on both of them. But I'm going to try and get as much out as possible for every single day for both of those. So expect to see quite a bit, either your grid-only or grid with tickets. And you can always get those at racingnews.com.
Make sure racingnews.com, check out the previews for all of the big races coming up this week. Full-length previews of the Schuylerville, the Quick Call, the Friday Stakes race, the Victory Bell. Is that what it's called? See, I can't remember. There's too many stakes races at Saratoga. It's too much fun. You can see all that at racingdudes.com. Aaron will have the full free previews for the Haskell and the Diana up on probably on Wednesday as well once they draw the races, so make sure you check that out. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Curtis Kellaward. He is at SummerBomb18, number 1, number 8. We will post our updated tickets. We're praying that they stay on the turf, at least for the stakes races, or at least for that late pick 4 sequence there to help us out. Until next time, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Enjoy opening day.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.